I never expected to discover my wife's infidelity through a text message glowing on her unattended phone. "You look so hot in that skirt today. Can't wait to take it off you later." Those words shattered my world and ended my marriage to Hazel. But when she chose her lazy boyfriend over me, she never anticipated my revenge would be so devastating. Caught between betrayal and business, I faced the ultimate relationship crisis. What happened next shocked everyone in the publishing world, especially my cheating wife. My name is Wesley Grant, and at 38, I thought I had life pretty much figured out. I was an accomplished editor at a mid-sized publishing house in Boston, with a knack for spotting literary diamonds in the rough. My colleagues respected me for my editorial instincts, and authors appreciated my ability to elevate their work without overshadowing their voice. I was content with my career trajectory until fate threw me a curveball in the form of Hazel Montgomery. I met Hazel at the annual Publishers Association conference in New York. I almost skipped the event that year. My schedule was packed with manuscripts that needed attention, and networking events always drained my energy. But my boss insisted I attend, claiming it would be good for the company image to have our star editor present. Little did I know that decision would completely alter the course of my life. Hazel was hosting a panel on innovative marketing strategies for debut authors. She commanded the room with a confidence that was magnetic, gesturing energetically as she spoke about leveraging social media and building author platforms. While everyone else seemed mesmerized by her charisma, I noticed something else: gaps in her understanding of what actually makes readers connect with a book. During the Q&A, I raised my hand and respectfully challenged one of her points, suggesting that authentic storytelling would always outperform even the most brilliant marketing tactics. The room went quiet, probably expecting her to dismiss my comment. Instead, her eyes lit up with interest. "That's an excellent perspective," she said, pointing at me. "And you are?" "Wesley Grant, senior editor at Pinnacle Publishing," I replied. After the panel, she sought me out at the networking mixer, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "So, Wesley Grant, tell me more about your thoughts on authentic storytelling," she said, offering me one of the glasses. What started as a professional discussion about publishing strategies evolved into a 3-hour conversation that skipped between books, films, childhood memories, and future ambitions. Hazel was brilliant, witty, and surprisingly vulnerable when talking about her struggles to be taken seriously in the industry. "Everyone sees me as just a marketing person," she confessed. "They don't understand that I genuinely care about the books and authors." When the event ended, we exchanged business cards, but we both knew it was more than a professional connection. As I flew back to Boston the next day, I couldn't stop thinking about her sharp insights and the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed. I didn't expect her call so soon, but 3 days later, my phone rang with an unknown New York number. "Wesley, it's Hazel Montgomery. I'm going to be in Boston next week for a meeting, and I was hoping we could continue our conversation over dinner." That dinner was the first of many, and each time we met, I felt myself falling deeper into her world, completely unaware of the relationship crisis that was waiting for me down the road. Those first few weeks after the conference, Hazel's calls became a regular part of my routine. What started as quick questions about editorial perspectives gradually evolved into hour-long discussions about the publishing industry, market trends, and eventually, our personal lives. "I have this author," she'd begin, "brilliant storyteller, but struggling to find the right audience." And I'd share my insights, offer suggestions on how to position the book, or recommend changes to strengthen the narrative. At first, I saw myself as just a professional sounding board. But something shifted when our conversations began stretching past midnight, veering away from manuscripts and marketing strategies to childhood memories, favorite films, and dreams we hadn't shared with anyone else. "Do you ever wonder if you're making a real difference?" she asked me one night, her voice softer than usual. "Everyone sees my successes, but sometimes I feel like I'm just moving books without actually connecting readers to stories that matter." That vulnerability caught me off guard. The confident, unstoppable Hazel Montgomery was showing me a side that her polished LinkedIn profile didn't reveal. Our professional relationship transformed when she visited Boston again, ostensibly for meetings with local bookstores. She suggested coffee at a small cafe near the harbor. Coffee turned into lunch, which stretched into an afternoon walking through the public garden, watching the swan boats glide across the pond. "I never do this," she admitted, as we sat on a bench, watching the sunset paint the city's skyline in shades of gold. "Take time off during business trips, I mean." "Maybe you should," I replied. "Sometimes the best ideas come when you're not actively looking for them." Soon, our meetings became more frequent. Whenever Hazel had business in Boston, she'd extend her stay by a day or two. Whenever I traveled to New York for publisher meetings, I'd find reasons to visit her office. We were dancing around the obvious. This was no longer just about professional courtesy. The line blurred completely the night we met for dinner at a small Italian restaurant in the North End. We shared a bottle of wine, talking about everything and nothing until the restaurant staff began stacking chairs. Walking her back to her hotel, our hands brushed against each other, and without thinking, I took hers in mine. She stopped walking, looked at our intertwined fingers, then up at me. The kiss that followed answered all the unspoken questions between us. After that night, our relationship entered new territory. Work calls ended with "I miss you." Text messages about book contracts included heart emojis. Weekend visits became our norm. And somewhere between manuscript discussions and midnight confessions, I realized I was falling for the woman who had started as just another industry contact. What I didn't realize then was how this blurring of professional and personal boundaries would set the stage for the infidelity that would eventually tear my world apart. 6 months into our relationship, Hazel called me with an offer that would change everything. "Wesley, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, her voice vibrating with excitement. "Remember that literary agency I've been talking about starting? Well, I've secured the funding. This is happening." I congratulated her, genuinely thrilled about her success. Then came the real bombshell. "I want you to join me as my editorial director," she continued. "Your expertise in developing authors combined with my marketing skills. We'd be unstoppable." The offer caught me completely off guard. "Hazel, that's a huge step. I have a secure position at Pinnacle. A position where you're undervalued and overlooked," she countered. "How many times has your boss taken credit for your discoveries? With me, you'd have real equity in the business, Wesley. We'd be building something together." She wasn't wrong about Pinnacle. Despite my contributions, I'd been passed over for promotion twice. The thought of working alongside Hazel, building an agency from the ground up, was undeniably appealing. "I need time to think about it," I said cautiously. "Of course," she replied, "but don't overthink it. Sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards, in business and in love." Over the next 2 weeks, we discussed every detail of her proposal. The salary was comparable to what I was making, with the added benefit of profit sharing once the agency became profitable. More importantly, I'd have editorial freedom, the chance to shape the careers of writers I believed in. Still, leaving a stable job for a startup was daunting. What if it failed? What if mixing our personal and professional lives created tension in our relationship? What if I was making a decision based on emotions rather than logic? When I shared my concerns with Hazel one night over dinner, she reached across the table and took my hand. "I understand your hesitation," she said. "But think about it. We're already halfway there. You already advise me on potential clients. I already consult you on marketing strategies. The only difference is that now you'd get proper recognition and compensation for your contributions." Looking into her eyes, I felt my reservations melting away. Here was a woman offering me not just a job, but a partnership, a chance to build something meaningful with someone I was falling in love with. 2 days later, I handed in my resignation at Pinnacle. My colleagues were shocked. My boss tried to counteroffer, but my mind was made up. Within a month, Montgomery Literary Agency opened its doors in a small but stylish office in downtown Boston. Hazel handled the business side, client acquisition, contract negotiation, marketing plans, while I focused on manuscript development, author relationships, and editorial direction. We were more than just business partners. By the time we celebrated the agency's 6-month anniversary, we were living together. And on our 1-year business anniversary, after signing our biggest author yet, Hazel surprised me with a proposal of her own. "We make such a great team," she said, pulling out a small velvet box. "Why stop at business partners?" The diamond wasn't large, but it sparkled with promise. So did her eyes as I said yes, unaware that the trust one was placing in her, both professionally and personally, would lead to the most painful betrayal of my life. The first 5 years of marriage and business partnership with Hazel were nothing short of extraordinary. Montgomery Literary Agency quickly established itself as a boutique powerhouse, known for discovering innovative voices and transforming promising manuscripts into bestsellers. Our professional dynamic was perfect. Hazel dazzled clients with her charisma and market insights, while I worked behind the scenes, nurturing authors and refining their manuscripts. We became known as the agency that could spot talent others had overlooked and develop it into commercial success. "You have the golden touch, Wesley," Hazel would say proudly when introducing me to industry insiders at publishing events. "He sees what a book can become, not just what it is," she'd explain, her arm linked through mine. I loved those moments, her public acknowledgement of my contribution, the way she valued my expertise. We were truly partners, each bringing different but complementary strengths to the table. Our personal life flourished alongside the business. We bought a Victorian brownstone in Beacon Hill, painstakingly renovating it room by room. Weekends were spent hosting dinner parties for authors and publishing executives, or escaping to a small cottage we purchased on Cape Cod. Every milestone, signing a major author, securing a 7-figure deal for a debut novel, being featured in Publishers Weekly, we celebrated together, toasting to our shared vision and success. "We're unstoppable together," Hazel would say, clinking her glass against mine. The perfect team. Even when challenges arose, a promising author who didn't deliver, a manuscript that failed to sell despite our confidence in it, we faced them as a unit. There was no blame, no finger-pointing, just two professionals problem-solving together, then leaving work concerns at the office door when we came home. Our marriage seemed as solid as our business reputation. We communicated openly, supported each other's individual interests, and maintained the spark that had brought us together. Unlike some couples in the industry whose relationships crumbled under professional competition, our work strengthened our bond. "You know what I love most about us?" Hazel said one night as we lay in bed, reviewing manuscripts. "We never have to choose between marriage and career. We've managed to make them enhance each other." I believed her completely. In an industry rife with gossip about infidelity and power struggles, we seemed to have cracked the code for a successful partnership on all fronts. How naive I was. The harmony I treasured was about to be shattered by the arrival of someone who would expose cracks in our foundation I hadn't even realized were forming. Cracks that would eventually break, open into a chasm of betrayal I never saw coming. The day Donovan Tucker walked into our agency was the beginning of the end, though I didn't recognize it at the time. He came highly recommended by one of our most successful authors, a slick-talking rights manager who'd supposedly worked wonders negotiating film and television deals for literary properties. "We need someone dedicated to subsidiary rights," Hazel argued when presenting the idea of hiring him. "Think of all the potential revenue streams we're leaving on the table." It made sense on paper. Our agency was growing, and neither of us had the bandwidth to properly explore adaptation opportunities for our clients' work. Still, something about Donovan rubbed me the wrong way from our first meeting. He had this way of talking a big game without saying anything of substance. His resume looked impressive at first glance, but when I pressed for specific details about deals he closed, his answers were vague. He'd flash that practice smile and pivot to another topic, smooth as silk. "I'm not sure about this guy," I told Hazel after his interview. "His experience seems exaggerated." "Oh, you're overthinking it." She dismissed my concerns with a wave of her hand. "He comes with stellar references. Besides, we need someone with his connections." Against my better judgment, I defer to her. After all, Hazel had always had good instincts about people. Maybe I was just being paranoid. From day one, Donovan mastered the art of looking busy while accomplishing next to nothing. He'd stride into the office late, coffee in hand, talking loudly about some crucial breakfast meeting with a producer. He'd name drop constantly, claiming to be texting with this director or that studio executive. Yet somehow, concrete deals never materialized. What baffled me was Hazel's reaction. The same woman who demanded excellence from every other employee seemed blind to Donovan's shortcomings. When our finance director pointed out that his department had generated minimal revenue despite its overhead, Hazel defended him. "These things take time," she insisted. Building relationships in Hollywood isn't like selling books to publishers. I might have chalked it up to simple misjudgment if I hadn't started noticing other changes. Hazel and Donovan began having frequent strategy meetings behind closed doors. Their lunch breaks stretched from 1 hour to 2, sometimes 3. She began dropping his name into conversations unnecessarily. Donovan thinks we should approach the Goldstein manuscript differently, she'd say, or Donovan has some interesting ideas about our branding. Since when did we take branding advice from a subsidiary rights manager with no proven track record? The office whispering started about 3 months after Donovan joined us. I caught snippets of conversations that abruptly stopped when I entered rooms. I noticed sympathetic glances from my assistant. One afternoon, I overheard our receptionist on the phone. "Yeah, it's so obvious. I don't know how Wesley doesn't see it." My stomach nodded. Deep down, I knew exactly what they were implying. I just wasn't ready to face the possibility of my wife's infidelity. Not yet. But the seeds of trust issues had been planted, and they were beginning to take root. I couldn't ignore the warning signs anymore. The lingering glances, the inside jokes, the way Hazel's face lit up when Donovan entered a room. It was like watching my marriage slip through my fingers in slow motion. I needed to address the elephant in the room before these relationship problems consumed me entirely. One evening after most of the staff had left, I decided to broach the subject. Hazel was sitting at her desk, ostensibly reviewing contracts, though her phone kept lighting up with notifications that made her smile. "We need to talk about Donovan," I said, closing her office door behind me. Her expression immediately shifted, defensive, almost hostile. "What about him?" "His performance, for starters," I said, trying to keep the conversation professional. "It's been 6 months, and he's generated hardly any subsidiary deals. The investment isn't paying off." Hazel's back straightened, her voice cooling. "You're being too impatient. These relationships take time to cultivate. Do 3-hour lunches help cultivate them?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. That's when it happened, the moment that confirmed my worst fears. Rather than address the legitimate business concern, she went straight to personal accusation. "Oh my God, are you jealous?" she snapped, her eyes flashing. "I can't believe you would stoop to this level, Wesley." I hadn't even mentioned the rumors or my suspicions of infidelity. Her defensive overreaction spoke volumes. I didn't say anything about being jealous. I replied quietly, "I'm talking about a business issue with an underperforming employee." "Right," she scoffed, gathering her things. "This conversation is over. I don't have time for this nonsense." She brushed past me, leaving me standing alone in her office, the scent of her perfume lingering in the air alongside the bitter taste of betrayal. After that night, discussing Donovan became impossible. Any mention of his name would trigger an immediate shutdown, an eye roll, a heavy sigh, or simply Hazel walking away. The wall between us grew higher with each attempted conversation. Then came the business trips. Suddenly, Hazel needed to be in Los Angeles with increasing frequency, supposedly meeting with film producers interested in our author's work. Despite being the editorial director and having extensive knowledge of our client's material, I was never invited along. "It makes more sense for Donovan to come," she'd explain. "He has the industry connections." The trips followed a predictable pattern, hastily planned, often extending over weekends, with vague itineraries and minimal check-ins while away. She'd return with surface-level updates, but few tangible results. The final straw came when I overheard 2 junior agents whispering in the break room. "They didn't even try to get separate rooms at the conference," one murmured. "I know. I feel so bad for Wesley," the other replied. "Everyone knows except him." As I stood frozen around the corner, I realized I wasn't paranoid or insecure. I was just the last to acknowledge what had become painfully obvious to everyone else. My wife was having an affair right under my nose. The day my suspicions were irrefutably confirmed began like any other. We had a quarterly board meeting scheduled, a routine review of the agency's performance, upcoming projects, and financial projections. I spent the morning preparing my editorial report, compiling statistics on manuscript acquisitions and author development. The meeting proceeded smoothly until we reached the subsidiary rights portion of the agenda. Donovan's presentation was predictably vague, full of promises about deals in the pipeline and growing industry interest, but lacking concrete results. When our CFO questioned the department's expenses versus revenue, Hazel quickly intervened, steering the conversation to other topics. After the meeting adjourned, I needed to discuss a time-sensitive manuscript issue with Hazel. She had stepped out briefly, mentioning she needed to use the restroom. I waited in her office, glancing at the notes she'd left scattered on her desk. That's when her phone lit up with an incoming message. I didn't mean to look. I'm not the type to snoop through my wife's phone, but the preview notification caught my eye involuntarily. From Donovan. You look so hot in that skirt today. Can't wait to take it off you later. The words hit me like a physical blow. For several seconds, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The evidence of my wife's betrayal was right there in black and white, impossible to rationalize away. All the months of suspicion, all the whispers and pitying glances, they suddenly crystallized into this moment of horrible clarity. With shaking hands, I took out my own phone and snapped a picture of the message. Some part of me knew I'd need proof, that Hazel would deny everything if confronted without evidence. I heard footsteps approaching and quickly moved away from her desk, my mind racing. I couldn't confront her now, not in the office with everyone nearby, not when I felt like I might shatter into pieces at any moment. Sorry about that, Hazel said breezily as she entered. What did you need to discuss? I don't remember what I said. Some excuse about the manuscript issue resolving itself. All I recall is the effort it took to keep my voice steady, to look at her and not see a stranger wearing my wife's face. I made it through the rest of the day on autopilot, burying myself in work while the evidence of infidelity burned a hole in my phone. That afternoon, during a client meeting, I had to address concerns about delays in the publication timeline. The source of these delays was, unsurprisingly, Donovan's department. As I professionally outlined the issues and proposed solutions, Hazel interrupted, contradicting me and defending Donovan's work. In front of our clients and team members, she dismissed my concerns as micromanaging and resistance to innovative approaches. The room fell silent. Everyone could see what was happening. My wife was choosing her lover over me, publicly undermining my professional judgment to protect him. The humiliation was complete. I maintained my composure, finishing the meeting without further incident. But as I walked back to my office, I knew our marriage was over. It was time to take back control of my life. I returned to my office, closed the door, and took a deep breath. The time for denial and second-guessing was over. With methodical calm that surprised even me, I opened my laptop and began typing my resignation letter. I, Wesley Grant, hereby resign from my position as editorial director at Montgomery Literary Agency, effective immediately. I paused, then added a second paragraph. I am also formally ending our marriage. I have evidence of your infidelity with Donovan Tucker. Further communication should be directed through my attorney. Simple, direct, final. I printed 2 copies, signed both, and placed them in a folder. For a moment, I sat at my desk, memories flooding through me. The excitement of starting the agency together, the pride we'd felt signing our first major author, the quiet evenings reviewing manuscripts side by side. How had we gone from that to this hollow betrayal? With resolute steps, I walked to Hazel's office. She was alone, reviewing contracts at her desk. Without a word, I placed the folder in front of her. She glanced at it, mild curiosity on her face. The face I'd once thought I knew better than my own. "What's this?" she asked. "My resignation and divorce notice." She opened the folder, her expression shifting from confusion to shock as she read the brief paragraphs. "Wesley, what are you?" "Save it." My voice remained steady. "I know about you and Donovan. I have proof." She started to stand, panic replacing the shock. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" I turned and walked out, not waiting to hear whatever lies or justifications she might offer. In that moment, I felt nothing but cold clarity. My wife chose her lazy boyfriend over me, until she read my resignation letter. She tried to call after me, but it was too late. I walked straight out of the building, the weight of uncertainty finally lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in months, I could breathe again. I spent that night in a hotel, my phone turned off. I needed space to think, to process everything without Hazel's inevitable attempts to explain away her betrayal. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer who specialized in both business dissolution and divorce. unfortunately common combination in cases like mine. By evening, Hazel had left 17 voicemails and 32 text messages, ranging from angry accusations to tearful pleas. I listened to them all, but responded to none. When I finally returned home the following day, she was waiting in our living room, eyes red from crying. "We need to talk," she said, her voice hoarse. "I agree," I replied calmly. "About the terms of our separation." Her face crumpled. "Wesley, please. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or missing a deadline," I said. "Having an affair with an employee for months while humiliating me professionally isn't a mistake. It's a choice you made repeatedly." She moved toward me, but I stepped back. "What do you want?" she asked finally, a defeated look replacing the desperation. "Half the agency," I stated simply. "I helped build it from nothing. I've developed most of our successful authors. I want my fair share. No more, no less. And if I refuse, then we go to court. Every email, every text message, every witness to your affair becomes public record. Think about what that would do to the agency's reputation. To yours." She flinched at the clinical way I laid out her options. This wasn't the man she married, the supportive, nurturing editor who put others first. But betrayal changes people. It had certainly changed me. After hours of negotiation spanning several days, we reached an agreement. I would retain half ownership of the agency, but operate independently. The client list would be divided equitably. Our personal assets would be split according to standard divorce procedures. My first executive decision as co-owner? Firing Donovan Tucker. I didn't gloat or make a scene. I simply had HR deliver a termination letter citing poor performance and breach of company ethics policy. When he tried to protest, I had security escort him from the building. But I didn't stop there. I made calls to every major publishing house and literary agency in the country, sharing evidence of Donovan's professional misconduct and negligence. Within weeks, his name was toxic in the industry. No one would touch him. Hazel didn't contest it. She knew any attempt to protect him now would only strengthen the narrative that their affair had compromised her business judgment. We finalized the divorce papers on a Tuesday morning, a quiet ending to what had once seemed like a perfect partnership. As I signed the last document, I felt neither triumph nor sorrow, just a calm certainty that I was finally free of the relationship crisis that had consumed my life. "I genuinely hope you find happiness, Hazel," I said as we parted. And surprisingly, I meant it. 3 years have passed since that fateful day I discovered my wife's betrayal. 3 years of rebuilding, reflecting, and ultimately, rediscovering myself. Looking back now, with the clarity that only time can provide, I find myself pondering questions I never thought I'd have to face. Was it a mistake to work with my wife in the first place? I've turned this question over countless times in my mind. On paper, Hazel and I seemed like the perfect professional match. Her marketing brilliance complemented my editorial instincts, creating a business partnership that propelled our agency to the top. But what I didn't understand then was how quickly power dynamics can shift in a relationship when one person becomes the other's boss. The moment Hazel became the face of our company, our marriage subtly transformed. I was no longer just her husband, but her employee in many ways. That imbalance created vulnerabilities I was too blind to see until it was too late. Did I let love cloud my judgment? Absolutely. I ignored red flags that would have been obvious in any other professional setting. I made excuses for behavior I wouldn't have tolerated from anyone else. I trusted that our shared personal life would somehow protect our professional relationship from the pitfalls that ensnare others. Trust issues weren't something I thought I'd ever struggle with, until I had to. My half of Montgomery Literary Agency now operates under a new name, Grant Literary Management. I've refocused entirely on what I've always done best, finding promising new voices and helping them craft stories that resonate. Without the distractions of a failing marriage and office infidelity, my professional instincts have sharpened. 3 of my authors have hit the bestseller lists in the past year alone. Hazel's side of the business continues to function, though I hear rumors that without my editorial guidance, they've struggled to maintain the quality that once defined our joint venture. We communicate only through intermediaries when absolutely necessary. As for my personal life, I've been slower to rebuild there. The wounds of betrayal cut deep, but they're finally beginning to heal. I've started dating again recently, a professor of literature I met at a book festival. We're taking things slowly, building a foundation of honesty and clear boundaries. Do I regret how things ended with Hazel? No. Perhaps I could have confronted the situation earlier, before it spiraled into such a public humiliation. But the decisive action I ultimately took was necessary, not just to salvage my professional reputation, but to reclaim my self-respect. If there's one lesson I've learned from this painful chapter, it's that no relationship, personal or professional, can survive without mutual respect. Love isn't enough. Trust isn't enough. Without respect, everything else eventually crumbles. My name is Wesley Grant, and this is my story of betrayal, resilience, and ultimately, redemption.